The thing I've learned as an adult is that we are all students within this classroom of life. If we want to continue to grow, we have to be willing to learn. But with
Yes.
that, as somebody who has a learning disability, I've had to recognize and acknowledge like I need to continue having my individualized educational plan. It's of course it's going to
Right.
look different, but I'm not going to be able to continue to grow in the classroom of life if I don't have my IEP.
Welcome back. We're your host, Savannah.
And Kaylin.
Today we have a very special guest, Becca Boston. Hi, Becca. Thanks for
Hello.
joining us.
Thank
We
you
wanted
for
to make sure that you had some time to give like a brief overview about your background, what you do, any fun facts about yourself that you want to share. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So my name is Becca Boston. I was not born and raised in Boston in any way. I've never lived there. Just like to put that out in the know because with it my being my last name, a lot of people think I'm from there, but I'm not. I was actually born and raised outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and lived there for 23 years of my life. I was diagnosed with dyslexia at a very young age, dyslexia and an auditory processing disorder. And with having the diagnosis at a very young age, I was able to recognize that my learning disability is not necessarily a disability. And if anything, I despise the word disability because if you break it down, it means not able. But those who have a learning disability have the ability to learn. They just learn differently. So I see dyslexia as a learning difference because we still have the ability to learn. We just learn differently. So I today see my dyslexia as my superpower. It has taught me incredible, important life lessons throughout my journey. And outside of understanding that being your own advocate inside of the classroom, advocating for my mental health got very hard as I was involved in a domestic violence relationship that I hid behind my smile for far too long. Eventually, I stepped out into the war of recovery. And I say war of recovery because it is not an easy battle.
Yeah.
Not an easy battle, as always. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to. It's not point A to point B. A lot of setbacks and trials and tribulations, but recovery also makes you stronger. And with that, I chose to pack up my bags and move across country to here in Portland, Oregon. And I've been living here for the past 7 years. And today I am a social media influencer, best-selling author for 2 different books. And full-time, I am a training coordinator for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, helping to train the caregivers. So kind of a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I just wanted to add in that the whole issue of dyslexia is very close to my heart. My husband actually has dyslexia.
Okay.
So it's really, really cool having you on and just being able to have a conversation about it. And I know October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. So it's just really important bringing awareness to the topic and, you know, educating and sharing resources. So we're really excited to have you here just to help share that.
Yeah.
We're ready to break the stigma.
Yes, exactly.
So now we know what dyslexia is, but some of our listeners may not. Would you mind giving us just a brief overview of what dyslexia is?
Yes, I'm semi-laughing because honestly, as a dyslexic, it is one of the hardest things for me to explain because I just live it on a daily basis. I don't know what it's like not to have dyslexia. But dyslexia is a language-based learning disability, primarily facing struggles with reading, coding words, and spelling along those lines. But it also can play a factor in a wide variety of ways, as, you know, not just being able to read a word, but you also need to understand like the syllables. So understanding that B makes the B sound. So that was something like when I was young, I remember my mom was, you know, helping me learn those syllables and all of that. And when she showed me the letter B, I couldn't put together that it made the bus sound, which is funny today to look back on because my name has 2 B's. So would I have been calling myself Becca Austin? You know, the things I wonder about that I'll never have answers to.
So now that you gave us a brief overview, which was very helpful, thank you. Could you please describe your experience with dyslexia and how it impacted your life so far?
Yeah. I wouldn't know life without it. Like I said, it's something I was
Right.
born with, something I'm going to the grave with. And I think being diagnosed with it at a very young age was honestly very helpful to me, because with
Right.
with any diagnosis, you
Mhm.
have the diagnosis, but the diagnosis doesn't define you. Yes, you
Yeah.
are faced with your own obstacles and your own challenges, but there's so much more to you than your own diagnosis.
Yeah.
Dyslexia
Yeah.
specifically, for me, impacted, the way in which I can at times communicate. Reading, obviously, being one of those. Even when I was diagnosed, though, my person that was diagnosing me said that I always had a gift of writing. So for me personally, I do better when I can just free write, but when I'm given an
Yeah.
assignment, that's where it can be challenging. Also, getting the fine details of like books or anything along those lines,
Mhm.
it's something that I can struggle with. And it plays a wide variety in different ways, and I think some of it's hard to put together, like what is dyslexia and what is my auditory processing disorder. But
Right.
even just having conversations sometimes, like I say to people, imagine yourself in a room and a party's happening, loud music, wide variety of different conversations are going on, and let's say you're talking to somebody about, I don't know, football,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you think you heard and comprehended something about elephants. I don't know, I'm making this up on the spot.
Okay.
But then you go on this tangent about elephants, and this person is looking at you like, why are you going off on elephants?
Right.
That's what I heard and comprehended, and all I can do now is just, laugh it off and keep on moving. So,
Right.
um, you know, dyslexia has definitely taught me to find the humor. So,
Well, that's great. I
yeah.
love the outlook on it,
Yeah.
and um like you said, it's been your life, so it's hard to be like, this is how it's affecting me, because it's all you know. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
As far as um examples for like the workplace, do you have any specific examples for work or academic project where dyslexia posed a challenge and how you overcame it? Because I know with work it can be
Challenging.
especially difficult or challenging in times, you know.
Yeah, I'll give an example for like school and then also come to work. I know
Okay.
for me when I was growing up, one of the things that I really struggled with was history. And no matter
Mm,
how hard I studied, it was really challenging for me to get me an
yeah,
A. And I had to, learn through the support of my parents that it's okay to not get an A in every class,
Yeah.
and that
Right.
as
yeah,
long as I was passing, I was giving my absolute best, because I think so many times people don't see the behind the scenes work that dyslexics are putting in. They
yeah,
are hard
Mhm.
workers, but so
Oh yeah.
often they are told that they're lazy, or they don't, they're
Right.
not putting in the work. And I think that's something we need to, again, break the stigma, like you said in the beginning,
yeah,
because they are putting in that hard work. The results aren't just always showing that. So
right,
for the behind the scenes work to be, acknowledged, and also know that you're not defined by, the grade you get in history. There's so much more
Yeah.
to your life than the
right.
grades in school. So
Definitely.
that would be an example from school and growing up. And I would
Yeah,
say today, being an adult and, being in a job, all of that, I would definitely say that being in meetings is something that
oh
can be
yeah,
challenging, with all of, fast paced, communication can be hard. So for something that's
right.
supportive with me is having a note taker. So
Mm.
somebody's writing the
Mm.
notes, and being able to go back to that. I was also
Oh,
laughing the
okay.
other day, as I am in the healthcare field.
Yeah.
One of the really hard, challenging things, and I know this isn't just dyslexia related. I think
Yeah,
there's a wide variety of parts of dyslexia where I think it's just human nature in which some things are
right.
hard.
Exactly.
But I was making a phone call to a doctor, and I recognized I still, to this day, even having been in the field for, 7 years now, how challenging it is to pronounce medications.
Oh, yeah.
I
Um,
can imagine.
I could
how
imagine.
long they are. So that is
Yeah.
something that is incredibly difficult. And often when I'm on the phone with the doctor and having
Yeah.
trouble pronouncing that medication that's like
Yeah.
almost, long as the
Right.
alphabet, I'm like, I'm just gonna spell it out for you because that's gonna work best for you.
Right.
And hopefully you can figure out what I'm talking
Right,
about.
right.
So I think just being able to acknowledge like what are the supports that you need to continue to thrive in
Yes.
your job,
Yeah.
and advocating for yourself. Like I have no shame in sharing
Right.
with any stranger that I'm dyslexic and here's a challenge that I'm facing, but here's what I'm going
Yeah.
to do, so that we can work together and
Right.
continue to get the task done.
I love that.
I
I
love
love
that.
that. And you already shared a few tips, which is amazing. Can you
Yeah.
share any more advice or insights for potential employers or colleagues on how to best support and collaborate with individuals with dyslexia?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things when supporting someone with dyslexia, whether it's a child or
Mm.
somebody in the workforce or field, is providing them with patience.
Mm.
Yes.
As we are, doing our best, and we oftentimes need extra time. Extra time is
Yeah.
something that is often on an individualized
Mhm.
educational plan to provide a student with the time that they need to get done a
Mm.
project. Still with setting that deadline, in which it's due,
Yeah.
because let's face it, we all need that form of accountability. But I also
Yes.
think alongside of that is, providing them with a space in which they have somebody that they can talk to, that they
Mm.
can, ask the questions that they need to ask, because in my eyes there's no such
Right.
thing as a dumb question as long as you're
No.
learning and understanding.
Mhm.
And that's taken me years to learn and comprehend, is that I
Mm.
need to be
Yeah.
asking questions to the point in which I understand the information.
Right.
And what's funny about that is when I was younger, my mom was the question asker. She would ask question after question after question. It used to annoy the heck out of me.
You're like, Mom, stop.
Right, literally. I'm that person today that will literally ask question after question. But I understand that it's me being my own advocate, so that I
Yes.
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
and have the information in which I need. So definitely
Mm.
Right.
providing that space. It's another thing that, is often on an individualized educational plan, is being able to take
Yeah.
tests in separate areas. That way a student is not being distracted, and is able to fully focus on the task or the assignment that is in front of them. So I think it really
Right.
depends on each, student's needs, because dyslexia
Mhm.
looks completely different to each and every single person. So being
Yeah.
able to really define that IEP for that individual,
Mhm.
is really important.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Just taking that extra initiative to say, okay, what do you need from me to make sure that
Mm.
you can be the most successful as possible? You can understand, you know, what I'm asking you to do, your job duties. And I
Yeah.
think I think for me, just having really severe anxiety with the question thing, that's always been an issue for me,
Yeah.
is feeling embarrassed, or especially if I've already asked and I still don't understand and I have to ask again. That's always
Yeah.
been a
Well,
big
here's the
thing.
thing with that too, though, is often when you're thinking of a question and you're not asking it, somebody else in the room is wanting that answer.
So
Right.
true.
That's so
So
true.
true.
Yeah. And it's so much better to just ask again than to
Mm.
try to figure it out and look like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you might have to end up redoing it anyways. So
Exactly.
why not get
And
it
then
out of the
they'll
way
just be
first?
like, "Okay, this is a waste of my time. You could have just asked me the question and we would have been on our
Right.
way."
Right.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
also feel like just making sure, like, as an employer or as, an academic teacher or professor, that you are creating a safe space for individuals with
Right.
dyslexia or any kind of learning, difference or disability.
Yeah.
That way they feel comfortable enough to go to you about it and ask questions and ask for accommodation because,
Yeah.
if you're not that kind of safe space for them, they're not going to go to you and they're not going to be able to succeed. So
Right.
it's just they will still succeed, but just with a
But
little more
right. It'll be
difficulty.
more difficult.
Yeah,
It can even
exactly.
be the smallest thing too. I don't have this
Yeah.
on my email responder.
Mhm.
However, I've seen it in a wide variety of ways, of even at the end where your signature of your email can
Mhm.
say please disregard any spelling errors. You
I
don't
love
even have to
that.
name you have dyslexia. You
Mhm.
can if you want to put it out there, but
Yeah.
even just something simple, because sometimes, in these days, people say that, having spelling and grammar errors, you're not professional. And it's like, come
Right.
on, like, are we really doing
Yeah.
that
Are we
right
not
now?
past
Like,
that?
Right.
yeah.
Especially in the medical field, like
Mhm.
I know you're extremely busy and multitasking and doing this and then doing this and then this
Yeah.
person's probably calling you and
Yeah,
there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, but like you mentioned with the IEP, I love I was looking at your speakers one sheet. And I love the topics that you had listed. So I did note a couple because I would love to hear more insight.
Yeah.
Um the one I love the most is the implementing an IEP in the classroom of life. So could you please explain a little bit more about what the IEP is and then, just that whole mindset? Yeah.
Yeah. So again, kind of breaking down IEP is a individualized educational plan. So this is a very specific plan for the individual. I believe that the
Mhm.
individual needs to be involved within this. That
Yeah.
includes the individual, their parents, their teachers, and everybody working together. That way the
Mhm.
student can thrive within the classroom alongside of the accommodations in which the individual and child needs.
Mhm.
And it's created for, the classroom environments, especially
Mhm.
when you're in school aged years of up to, senior year, 12th grade.
Mhm.
And after that, you are kind of left to advocate for yourself. Now, many
Yeah.
colleges do have, disability services, ways in which you can go about receiving accommodations. It's
Mhm.
also important to recognize that not every professor or even teacher in school is going to understand the importance of your accommodations.
Right.
So
Right.
being able to learn what you need, why you need it, and then being able to advocate for that in the classroom is super important. The thing
Mhm.
I've learned as an adult is that we are all students within this classroom of life. If we want to continue to grow, we have to be willing to learn. But with
Yes.
that, as somebody who has a learning disability, I've had to recognize and acknowledge, like, I need to continue having my individualized educational plan. Of course, it's going to
Right.
look different, but I'm not going to be able to continue to grow in the classroom of life if I don't have my IEP. So for me, that's again like going back to recognizing that I thrive when I'm able to listen to podcasts that I can pause here, slow down, or go on
Right.
to Audible, which is an app
Mhm.
Yeah.
to listen to books, and have my book in front of me. So finding those, different aspects of what you need within the classroom of life to thrive. I know other people have said that being a part of online courses, to get through college has been supportive, so that way they can, listen to a recording of a class and go back and be able to, pause and take
Yeah.
notes, because that is another challenge that some people face is they're trying to take notes, but it's
Mhm.
hard to kind of, multitask with listening
Right.
and taking those notes. Or your IEP in life could be having a computer. I know for me, that is, I have
Mhm.
a computer for work, which makes it
Mhm.
10 times faster because I type a lot faster than I can write.
Right.
So really
Right.
discovering what you need in the classroom of life, so that way you are
Yeah.
continuing to grow as a student within life.
Mm.
Love that.
That's
Whatever
awesome.
tools. Yeah. That's
And
great.
like Kaylin said, we wanted to just elaborate on a few of your speaking topics. The first one was, the IEP. The second one, can you speak a little bit on your topic, strength is giving your pain a voice?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I was involved in a domestic violence relationship
Mm.
that I hid
Mhm.
behind a smile and outgoing personality for
Mm.
far too long.
Yeah.
And honestly, it is still to this day like one of my regrets. I,
Mhm.
didn't get the help that I needed during that time. And what hurts is I know that if I had spoken up during that time, that I would have gotten the support from my family, from
Mhm.
those, who are in my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, we can't go back and redo our past. And
Mhm.
I think one of the things with regret is you can continue to allow regret to consume you, or you can allow regret to be your biggest motivation.
Mm.
And as
Yeah.
I was continuing to put the work into myself, allowing myself to heal, allowing myself to take control back of my life, and no longer allowing the flashbacks of my past to, control my life, I began to recognize that my biggest strength in that season of my life was giving my pain a voice and
Mm.
receiving receiving the help that I needed in that time. And that was in the midst of the pandemic. Because for me,
Right.
during that time, I was, in the healthcare field, and my
Mhm.
world didn't shut down. I was still showing up for work.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I was burnt out, and
Mm.
I really needed to give my pain a voice, so I wasn't going to be relapsing within my self-harm journey and, all the mental health factors that I was
Mhm.
facing. So as time
Right.
went on, I just had to recognize, my strength is me showing up for me, putting the
Yeah.
work into myself,
Yeah.
and taking those small steps forward, because so often people want to take the big jump to success, right?
Right.
And at times
Yeah.
it happens for people and you see people succeed. At the
Mhm.
same time, it comes with a lot of pressure. So I think when you can begin to celebrate yourself and celebrate the journey along the way,
Yeah.
one, you fall in love with the journey, right? I have fallen in
Yeah.
love
Yes.
with self-help and personal development and putting the
Absolutely.
work into myself. But
Mhm.
you have to be willing to celebrate those small wins. And maybe that small win is
Yes.
you getting out of bed. Like that is
Right.
huge. When
Yes.
you are facing
Yes.
depression, when you are going through it,
Right.
it is hard, and you need to celebrate that. Maybe the next day it's you getting up and going outside for a walk. Like it is these small
Yes.
things that we need to celebrate along the way, so
Mhm.
that we're also not losing sight of ourselves.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
for me, it's just been this whole journey of redefining what strength is and
Mm.
speaking up about that, because I often say your strength isn't about how hard you can take a hit, how much you can
Right.
handle. Your strength is being willing to let go and
Mhm.
cry it out if you need to cry it out, right?
Yeah.
Like there's
Right.
Yeah.
strength within
Absolutely.
that, because your tears are watering your seeds of greatness so that you can continue to grow within this beautiful nature of life.
I
I
love
love
that.
that.
And also,
Yeah.
like, healing isn't linear. It's not gonna be a
Mhm.
perfectly straight path,
Yeah,
Nope.
full of easy going. It's gonna be, you're gonna have hard days, you're gonna have good days. You're
Yep.
absolutely.
gonna, relapse, come back a few steps, but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
ultimately, you're every day, every time you get out of bed, every time you do something small, like you said, it's one step closer to getting where you need to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I've had to learn this year is when it comes to self-growth, it's kind of never ending. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't see it as that. So they see this huge one big ultimate goal.
Mhm.
And then they may reach that goal, but then they still feel like, okay, what's next? What do I have
Yeah.
to do now? So if
Mhm.
you kind of look at it like that, of if there's not one huge ultimate goal in the end, then it's
Mhm.
a lot easier to take it day by day and step by step, and just be grateful for the progress that you've made so far.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I
exactly.
think I think within that too, it's like one, discovering your why. Why are you
Mhm.
choosing to
Yes.
grow? Why are you creating a greater version of yourself?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
like you said, I do think it is important, at times for people to have, a deadline goal, because that does create
Yeah.
Mhm.
a sense of urgency.
Right.
And at the
Mhm.
same time, you have to have a long-term why of why you are going to continue on even after you
Yes.
hit that goal. Because
Mhm.
let's
Mhm.
take fitness, for example. Fitness
Mhm.
shouldn't be necessarily a seasonable hobby. It should
Yeah.
be a
Right.
lifestyle change in which, people want to create. And I'm not trying to go down the whole like you got to go to the gym, but like what's the
No.
movement you
Yeah.
want to do? Do you enjoy
Right,
karate?
Exactly.
right.
Do you
Yes.
enjoy, I don't know, Zumba, yoga,
Yeah.
whatever it is
Whatever it
for,
is you enjoy.
a wide variety of different people. But for me, it's been the gym.
Right.
Yeah.
But finding that long-term why and that long-term
Mhm.
goal, with the understanding that there's going to be different seasons in which you have to
Yeah.
redefine
Yeah.
your why and redefine your goal, right? So for
Definitely.
example, for me,
Yes.
within my fitness journey, I am 90 pounds down from when I started. And
Congratulations.
thank you.
That's awesome.
And one thing that I've had to learn is that, I got to a point in which I was like, I never expected to be where I am today. Why do I want to continue forward? What is my next goal? Why is this important to me? And not related to the results I want to see necessarily within my body. Of course, having those are good, they're important. But for me, I tie it to my mental health. It's important for me to continue to work out because that is a version of therapy for me. It is a reason in which I was able to stay off all of my medication. And for me, it's also being able to recognize that as I continue to grow, as I continue to take on this new pressure, as you begin to level up, that the gym is a place in which I can go to let go of the pressure and just zone in. And, ultimately it's bettering both. It's bettering my mental health and bettering my body. So I think just redefining your why and the results in which you want to see.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yes. I love seeing your TikTok videos as I scroll. They're always so inspirational. I'm like, oh, hold on. Let me see what she has to say. So the last topic that I have here of yours is being the trend to your own narrative. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. This came about, as you mentioned, TikTok. I jumped on TikTok, never expecting to be where I am today. I really jumped on in 2020 when we were all bored in the house, bored. If you've been on TikTok since 2020 and you know that sound,
definitely.
I'm like, those who know. But if you don't, a lot of us jumped on TikTok because we were bored in the house and we were looking for that. We were looking to build community, and TikTok became our place. So I never expected necessarily, for my videos to start getting traction, for me to be, really sharing my voice. And one thing about my content is that I never really do the trends. I'm not a trendy person. If anything, I'm late to the game. Like, it's not worth me doing by the time I recognize it because it's on its way out the door. Right. Not doing the trends, but still being able to see that I'm getting, a following and all of that. I began to recognize that, I'm the trend to my own life. I'm setting a trend that I want people to see. And it's been a journey as we are talking about, like, results don't happen overnight. Right. But for me, it's being recognizing that I'm the trend to my life. You can be the trend to your life of, whatever that is for you, of just showing up and sharing you, because there is somebody out there that is probably looking for you to help them within their journey. And the other thing within that is also just focusing on the one person impact. So we all want the millions of followers, right? Like, we are living in a social media world where everybody just wants more and more people to follow them. And I'm like, that's great. But also, like, are you taking care of the small community in which you have? Because somebody has millions of followers and not even know who anybody is, and be making, I don't know, content of somebody peeling off shells off an egg, which is a real thing on TikTok. And I'm not saying his content isn't great. I have definitely been in his lives watching him peel off eggshells. But anytime I doubt myself now when I go live and I'm speaking, I'm like thinking of this guy like, okay, there's literally somebody out there peeling shells off of an egg, and I'm over here speaking life into people, and I'm also engaged with my community and helping them. It's not always seen in the comment sections or the amount of likes in which you're getting on a video, but it's really seen and felt between you and your community on the back end and back side of things when people are messaging you, hey, this is what I'm going through. How can you help me here? Or just telling them telling you how they've impacted your life. So when you're able to focus on that one person and take care of that one person, guide that one person, it leads to a ripple effect of more people following you and more people share about who you are.
That's so true. And I know with our podcast, we're really trying to focus on building a community, building a safe place, spreading awareness, talking about topics that, some people might be afraid to talk about. And I feel like you said, focusing on that one person impact is so important because that's literally why we show up every week. You never know who you're going to impact. Even if it's
Exactly.
one person, I don't care. That's
Exactly.
amazing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
Yes.
And the other thing
right.
is you never know who that one person is sharing it with, because
exactly.
that one person could be sharing it to an auditorium of, I don't know, like
Yeah.
1,000 people
Yeah.
or something.
You never
Yeah.
know.
Numbers lie.
That's so true.
Exactly.
So I love that you guys continue to show up and you let people talk about hard topics, because you never
Yeah.
know, like you're saying, like who that one person is that needs that
Yeah.
message. So
Yeah.
props to you guys. I love it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
It's always
So-
funny because I'll try to post clips on TikTok, and with our podcast, it's we couldn't pick one niche.
Yeah.
So
That
we do talk about whatever we want, conspiracies and like spooky stuff, and then of course mental health, because it's very important to us. But a lot of people don't know that because that's not very clear on our page.
Yeah.
So it's probably confusing because it's like motivational, and then it's like, was this person a serial killer?
But here's what I love about that, because again, I'm not one of these social media gurus that knows it all.
Yeah.
Have I gone viral multiple times? Yes, but I don't have any special formula, yada yada.
Mhm.
But what I will say about niche is that at times, yes, I think it is important to have a niche, but I also believe that we are the niche.
Yes.
Because if you are showing up about things that you love, then you're your own niche. Your people will come and find you.
So
And
true.
should you let it be known? Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I couldn't fully let my people know that, hey, my content's literally all over the place. But I love that. I'm also all over the place. I don't have everything figured out.
Though. Let's normalize it, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Our niche is just about being candid and talking about what we want, and we don't want to lose ourselves within it, because the whole reason we started the podcast is because we always talk all the time, and it got to a point where we're like, we might as well make a podcast out of this and have fun. And we're not gonna sacrifice our having fun just because like one person doesn't like that it's kind of all over the place, because that's
if it's fun, you want to show up to it, right? And that goes for anything. So I love that. That's also how my best friend and I decided to bring her on as a co-host. We've certainly put it down, and we'll start it back up again in the future, but we did the same thing. We recognized we're having these long, in-depth conversations, and one day I said to her, I was like, you want to come be my co-host? Because hosting it on my own is hard.
I did one episode solo, and I don't know how you ever did it on your own, because it's talking with someone is so much easier than talking directly at the camera for an hour.
Yeah.
And
I'd say nowadays, I think I'd be able to do much better with it, with putting in the work as a speaker. But I think also what I truly enjoyed, I'm sure you guys get this too, is when you're having a conversation, you're getting two different perspectives. You're getting two different kind of viewpoints. And for me and my best friend, it's very valuable because we have a huge age gap. So I'm 30 and she's in her 40s.
I love that.
We're able to like talk about, a topic and how it can relate to us, and be able to bring those different viewpoints together. So I love the two-way.
For sure.
We'll keep our eye open for when your podcast comes back. For sure.
Oh my
definitely
God.
be listening in. Also, before we get off of this call here, I just wanted to ask, where are your books? Are they on Amazon?
Great question. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So it is available on Amazon. It is The Story Behind the Smile, Lessons Within My Life. I'm not going to lie, I'm still continuing to have some issues with Amazon. So if you try to search it in Amazon, you may not see it for some reason.
Okay.
Don't get me started. I'm frustrated about it. But if you do Google it, it will come up. So you can Google Becca Boston, The Story Behind the Smile, Lessons Within My Life. Also, if you go to any of my social media pages, I do have like a link tree, and my link to my book is there as well.
Perfect.
We will definitely attach your link tree in the description of this video when we post it.
Thank you.
Of course.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so great. We really appreciate you taking the time. We know you're busy and you wear many hats. So
I always look to put aside for good people. So I truly, truly appreciate you guys bringing me on and being able to spend this
Oh,
time with
that's
you. So thank you.
Awesome.